Street. Yeah. All right, welcome back to the Nexus Podcast. Austin Allen, the Director of Solution Architecture at Airlock Digital, is my guest. We spent some time talking about healthcare, cybersecurity, and hospitals are doing right and they're struggling. So, good to meet you. How you doing?
Pleasure, thank you. Yeah, it's been a little chillier than expected here, but the crowds have been coming out.
I'm from Massachusetts, like we were talking about. I think it's warmer at home than it is.
It definitely is.
It's okay. How's the show going for you?
Excellent.
Yeah,
I think I've barely stepped foot on the show floor. It's just been so
It's
much
okay.
great conversation outside of it. Yeah, the partner ecosystem here is incredible.
Right. Yeah, I know that they still have the two expo halls, and it's
Monster trucks and puppies and goats.
Puppies?
Oh yeah, what kind of puppies? There's a
Yeah,
lot.
that's going to get people in there.
It would, yeah.
So tell everybody a little bit about your day-to-day and your company.
Sure. So Airlock Digital is focused on application control. We do that through operating system hardening. Really what we do is turn the endpoint into a deny by default model. So with the EDR, everything is allowed to run, and then the EDR tries to take what's back. Our whole approach is the EDR is necessary in today's world. However, there's some fundamental things about locking down the system that we provide the land attack, hardening the OS, legacy system protection. So just good gaps that systems that's really what we focus on.
So your customers are beyond healthcare.
Very much, yeah. Healthcare is really any regulated industries are a really good target for us. But healthcare is very high on this. Financial services is also really high.
So let's talk about healthcare for a little bit. Just kind of, just bring me inside. What's the reality that you're seeing inside of hospitals without being connected? What's being connected? Why are they doing it? Should they be doing it?
Should they be doing it is always the fun part. There's the balance between what works at the hospital versus how much of a fine you can get with. Most hospitals know that if somebody going to come through and file enough HIPAA regulations, they probably find something wrong. But it's always the balance of what do we need to do our jobs versus what the fines were versus so that's public knowledge of kind of where the gaps are. The hospital industry is super interesting because the budgets I think have tightened a lot. It's almost in the conversations for me of almost like education where it's like, hey, this is the budget, it is what it is. It doesn't matter what the requirement is, we have to fit this budget, we can do it. With hospitals, it's even more complex because you've got beyond the legacy system core, medical devices is the easy target. A lot of those medical devices, the manufacturers just put out the legacy. You may have a vulnerability in a device that you use to talk to the nurse's station and other computers, and you go to the manufacturer and they say, hey, we're going to fix it in 9 months, and until that, it's up to you.
You're exposed. And I mean, like, it's part of the same story. It's patient care, and that's their core competency. Yeah, I'm going to share a password.
We would all argue we need to do a better job. I always get nervous when I see sticky notes on the monitor.
Yeah.
Assuming it's medical related. I'm sure there are some passwords still out there. But to your point, like you can't have security without constraint. And with constraint, there's only so much you can squeeze before people find ways to it, right? So finding that balance is not just about the technology, it's about the culture that's set at the hospital. And that doesn't start from the IT security team, that starts from the leadership, the executive team downwards.
And what's your experience in terms of security culture? Is it happening, or is it just like resources? There's a reality there.
It really has become about patient care. So in the beginning it was brand reputation damage. Well, the studies have shown that most companies that are publicly traded that have huge, they bounce back to a previous stock price or higher within 90 days. So it's not really about the financial anymore of the reputation. It's about the downtime and outage. And what does that do to patient care, to the ER system? It's really about patient care now and lives, which is where it always should have been. But now there's a little scrutiny on that. I think the boards for hospitals understand that, and really cyber insurance has become really difficult for hospitals to get. The expense is so high. There's a lot of hospitals in particular, or even rural hospitals, that are self-insuring. They just set a bucket of money aside and say if something happens, we're just going to pay it ourselves. We have no cyber insurance.
Wow. Really? It's just that expensive. That's that expensive. And I know that insurance companies have questionnaires that are millions of questions. Plus, it's paid long. You don't need all those check boxes. It's not going to happen.
Sure. And in most of these hospitals never do. So they have to try to find some type of compensating control established for say that they've done that. And the reality of it is that ransomware, for example, is hot topic. A third of the ransoms happen where a leading EDR is deployed. It's not necessarily the EDR's fault. In some cases, but in most cases, it's a misconfiguration. Right. And there's no check for that. The insurance check is, do you have EDR? Right? Do you have network segmentation? Do you have this? And you can say yes, but there's levels of how you configure those things that make you successful or not. And those aren't ever checked.
Yeah, they haven't gotten that level. How are hospitals doing in terms of kind of points, not equating cybersecurity patient just at lane? Those systems are reachable, records aren't available, imaging system, whatever.
Because the technology. But what I've also
They did so in the COVID era. There was actually a lot of threat actors that said, "Hey, like we understand
one of the things that I was trying to do is
healthcare." That lasted maybe 9 months. Yeah, like we want
totally dedicated to a part
to go back to that. But in that period, a lot of folks
So take a look at
healthcare took the opportunity to train their staff on how to use paper and pen, how to fill out charts manually. There's a whole generation of people that are able to do that outside of that. So some took the opportunity to do that. Some didn't.
Because we have to make sure that
Some maybe that if both hospitals don't use the one that was able to maintain keeping their ER is the one that avoids being in the public eye. The one that had to shut the ER down and divert it is the one that had a lot of partners.
You don't want to have diverse patients.
So,
How much is regulation or compliance cybersecurity programs? And does that make sense?
Yeah, huge. So our company was founded in Australia, and the cyber regulations are actually more strict than we have in the US. So we have a lot more frameworks. They have a lot more mandated regulations. It's very clear the differences, like even HIPAA itself. I think there's a new major iteration that's on the floor this year, but there's only been 2 ever major iterations of HIPAA since it came out. So 20-something years. That's really insane. I mean, it's 20 years. Exactly. In cyber, every 3 years, a third of your knowledge has been updated. So you think about that, in 9 years, we're doing it different. We're talking over 20 years of regulations. So there's no way we're keeping up. So it's really, what are you doing to keep up with the minimum amount of regulations versus what are you doing to be secure? I'm sure you've heard this, but it's the adage of compliance is not necessarily security.
So that was one of
Do they love that kind of guidance? There's kind of how much it started is called.
Yeah, again in Australia they're very direct with some of these guidance. In the US we don't like to we like to rebel. So I think in the highly regulated areas, stuff like healthcare in particular, when it comes to patient safety, I think there is a requirement to get more direct guidance versus maybe the financial side. A lot of the regulations cost them, so they see it as cost versus a necessity. In healthcare, I think there really is a focus now on, okay, we get it, we need this. And in a lot of cases, particularly in the medical device sector, these vulnerabilities have no patch. And so it leaves the hospitals left with liability because these vendors who create these tools and put out the software, they're not held accountable for patching and secure by default when they're putting it in the hospital. But it's an unfair burden really on the health system to figure out how to control and secure it.
All right, this is a question later on. How much was that? My outline here, but 450